GMA Senior Program Officer Rachel Rifkin, who is leading this entire effort, will facilitate the conversation and introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Judy. First, I just want to echo what Judy said. Thank you, everyone, for joining today, not only joining the funder community at large, but this particular session. I'm really excited about this initiative and the overall couple of sessions that I've put together for you guys. So I really hope you find this fulfilling and exciting and educational. And as Judy said, we will have a couple presenters today, but certainly always feel free to raise your hand. We do want this to be interactive. So Peely, if you go to the next slide. We'll give it just 1 second. She's going to work on it and I will build up the anticipation. This next slide is going to be our overall thesis for the whole initiative. So I have high hopes for it. But essentially, as Judy said, we're exploring the impacts of a guaranteed income program and a workforce development program, all targeted at youth in kind of that general 17 to 25 age. And so the idea here in our general thesis is that we believe providing guaranteed income for these young people who are in a workforce development program is going to lead to increased success for all of them. So if you can, Paley, we can go ahead to the next slide. Great. So I just wanted to make sure everyone had sort of the overview, big picture. This is what the next couple months will look like for the funder community. So today, we're at our first session. We're going to be understanding the needs of opportunity youth. Our next session will be in I'm just going to ask everyone who's not speaking to maybe mute yourself if possible. Our next session will be in late February, where we will be identifying obstacles and success in workforce development programs, again, targeted for youth. So we'll be delving into some of these big questions. What does success look like? And when we talk about success, is it for the nonprofit program? Is it for the individual? Whose success are we really measuring and how? Then in March, we'll get together again to talk about direct cash payment programs for youth. So I'm very excited about this session. I've lined up a really interesting national panel of speakers who have all been directly involved in either implementing or evaluating direct cash payment transfer programs for youth. And I would say that in my research phase, I reached out to a lot of folks who are involved in programs like this. And most of these programs really target a very specific set of either youth who are themselves parents or youth who are aging out of the foster home care system. But I was able to find a few folks, some in California, New Orleans, and Louisville, who have worked on programs offering direct cash payments to youth, just general youth. So they'll be the ones we'll be hearing from because I think it'll be most relevant to sort of our population and what we're trying to learn about. And this has all been designed so that when we meet in April, you guys will feel really well equipped and educated to make decisions on which nonprofits you want to fund. So for those of you who've participated in the past, this might feel familiar to you. This last session, essentially, we have an open RFP out right now. We're trying to spread the word as far as we can. We're inviting all eligible nonprofits in the greater Boston area to apply who are offering workforce development programs. My team here at GMA will do the first round, and we will ultimately work with the top 4 proposals who we think are most well aligned with what we're looking for, and they will present sort of a brief 5-minute pitch, similar to what we did last year for those of you who participated then. And ultimately, you guys will all get to decide which 2 nonprofits you want to fund. And I'm really pleased we've been able to raise some great funds. So both of the nonprofits are going to get $90,000, which I'm really hopeful will be really impactful for their participants. We can go to the next slide, Paley. So I just wanted to go over some common terminology because I think in these next couple months, you're going to hear these terms used pretty broadly. And to some extent, these 3 often are used interchangeably. They do have some slight nuances, but you will hear them used pretty frequently to describe the same thing. So I just wanted to do some level setting, make sure that we were all familiar with what we're talking about. So when you hear direct cash transfer or DCT, this is just an umbrella term, which is used anytime you're giving money to a single person. And again, it's widely used. There's no stipulations for how long. Sometimes it does include requirements, sometimes it doesn't, but it's giving someone direct cash. Guaranteed income is regular cash payment to targeted members of a community. So guaranteed income means there's no strings attached. Someone signs up for it, they're enrolled in a guaranteed income program, they generally can count on that money. It's often being used in circumstances where money is being provided for a minimum of 3 months. And I will just mention that in our RFP, we stipulated that we're letting the nonprofits decide how many people to enroll in their cohort, for how long they'll be getting the money, and how much money they'll be getting, because we feel like they know their participants the best to know what's going to be most impactful for them. But we did stipulate you have to give the money for at least a year, because part of the research behind it shows that a lot of the benefits of guaranteed income, besides being able to buy all the things you need, are really related to mental health and being able to count on that money. And the longer you can sustain it for, the better it generally works. And then you might be familiar with the term universal basic income, sometimes called UBI for short. And this is regular cash payments to all members of a given community. So while it is often used interchangeably with guaranteed income, our program is definitely a guaranteed income program, because we're obviously not giving it to, everyone. And even with, for example, the workforce development program that does get selected, it's likely that not all of their participants will get it. The nonprofit themselves will choose who gets it. And I do just want to take a moment to help explain and clarify that this program is not a work stipend, because ultimately the nonprofit that gets selected, they will choose to enroll however many people they want. And if for whatever reason, let's say one of the young people that they enroll decides, you know what, something came up and I'm not able to complete this workforce development program, they're still going to get the money. That's what makes this a guaranteed income project and not just a work stipend. We can go to the next slide, Paley. So you'll hear a lot today about opportunity youth. Hopefully this isn't the first time you're hearing this term, but I wanted to make sure everyone was familiar with it. So this just refers to young people between the ages of 16 and 24 generally, who are not enrolled in school or working. These are typically people who have not followed the very typical 4-year in high school, then going straight on to a 4-year college degree program. Previously, a lot of folks were using the terms disconnected youth, but we like opportunity youth. It's more positive and it reflects the potential. And then I put in workforce development. Hopefully you guys are all familiar with this. I know a lot of you in your own foundations fund workforce development programs, but I just wanted to make sure we had, again, for level setting purposes, a definition of what we're talking about. So programs and activities that help people be in a position to better get a job when they're done. Okay, and then this is my last slide, and it's just to introduce today's speakers. So I'm really excited about the folks we have lined up here. We have David, who is a young person himself. He's a student at the Wentworth Institute of Technology. We have Dennisse and Jermaine from Boston Public School Systems, and I'm really looking forward to everything they say. So we can go ahead and take the slides down, and I'm gonna now hand it over to David. And just to let you guys know about the agenda, we'll have David speak, and then we'll maybe ask 1 or 2 questions. Then we'll hand it over to Dennisse and Jermaine from BPS, and then we'll open it up widely for questions. And when we feel like we've gotten all of our questions done, our speakers will be able to leave, and we'll just have a little session afterwards here for the funders. And I promise to wrap it up by 12:30. Okay, thank you so much, and over to David.
Thank you, Rachel. Hello, everyone. I'd like to just introduce myself. My name is David Cerna. I am an Opportunity Youth Voice Leader at the Boston PIC. I am also, as Rachel mentioned, I'm a junior here at Wentworth Institute of Technology, pursuing my bachelor's in computer science. I am also a BPS graduate, as I graduated from the John D. O'Brien School of Mathematics here of Science and here in Roxbury. And the challenges that I face, along the way, on how I got to this where I am now is simply put, financial burden, family obligations, and not knowing where I wanted to base my career in. I often struggled with mental health early on, even during and after high school. After starting college and receiving help from organizations such as the Boys and Girls Club in Alston, also known as the Weston House, ultimately I was just going through college with a clear focus and understanding of what I wanted to do in my life. It wasn't until COVID came, and we all know about how that happened. And that decided to put me in a different trajectory and find, what I really am passionate for. And ultimately, after all that, a year or two later, brought me back to the academics, and where I graduated from Bunker Hill Community College and transferred here to Wentworth. So the support that I did receive came from having a college career coach named Portia at the Weston House. Weston House, like I said, is a Boys and Girls Club where I've been attending since I was 16, and having such an impactful community-based organization has been so rewarding, and it has been something to say the least, not even, you know, a pivotal moment in my life. My parents paid for my tuition through payment plans, but ultimately it had to come through federal loans and through scholarships through the Weston House. And what my journey was like from then on to becoming a youth voice leader, it's been a roller coaster to say the least. It wasn't it wasn't until being part at the Bunker Hill Community College that I started to get involved with a program named the Hope Initiative, uh, which stands for Halting Oppressive Pathways Through Education, a program that is designed to examine and eliminate social, institutional, and academic barriers that often prevent males of color from achieving their full potential at Bunker Hill Community College. As a Hope Scholar, I was not only felt empowered, but I was able to have resources that were dedicated for me, so that way I could succeed and be able to achieve greatness. Through the Hope, I became connected with the Boston PIC, also known as the Boston Private Industry Council, and saw an opportunity to become advocacy for youth. As such, we are here at the Opportunity Youth Voice. We started to do focus groups with Bunker Hill students, so that way we have a realization of where we can start having an impact on what is affecting 16 to 24-year-olds and see what we can do to help them along their journey. Lastly,
Awesome. Thank you so much,
one,
David. Please keep going. Yeah.
I was going to say, lastly, we have a lot more focus group planned in the coming weeks. So I would say that the three key things that we see in these focus groups are mentorships, sensitivity to neurodiversity, and also just a financial support. That is all for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, David. So I'm happy to open it up now if anyone has, one or two quick questions for David. If not, I can certainly ask him some, but I wanted to give everyone a chance to jump in. And again, there'll be plenty of opportunity for more questions and answers as well after we hear from our folks at BPS. Not seeing any immediate, I'll just go ahead. Oh, Judy, please.
Well, I'm curious about the mentorship element of your experience, David. At what point, did you become interested in having a mentor, or was that kind of a thing that just grew? Could you just talk just a tiny bit about how you got into a mentoring relationship with somebody?
Yes. So I'll say currently I'm in All Race Scholars. What that means is basically there's a scholarship out there for BPS graduates that had a difficulty in college. So they paired you up with a mentor. And having a mentor, I was able to ask him a bunch of questions, especially because that mentor is in an industry that I'm considering to finish my career in, right? Or start my career in, I should say. And having a one-on-one mentor, I think is extremely, incremental, because you're just able to ask them so many questions. You're able to have a inside look, and ultimately you have somebody who can support you in your court, whereas your parents may not have an understanding of what you wanted to do. So I think that it's been so much helpful, and that made me want to, hopefully continue and become a mentor later on in my life.
Well, thank you, and kudos to you for taking advantage of that. And yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I am going to hand it over to Dennisse. She can introduce herself and talk a little bit about her work with Opportunity Youth.
Great. Hi, everybody. Good morning. And thank you, David, for sharing your story. Super inspiring. As someone who works with the Boston Public Schools and is also a Boston Public School graduate myself. So good morning, everyone. My name is Dennisse Rorie. I am the director for the Office of Youth Leadership at Boston Public Schools. I'm going to share a few slides, if that's okay, just so I can stay kind of on track here. Can everybody see the slides there? Okay, great. So again, Dennisse Rorie, the Office of Youth Leadership for Boston Public Schools. And I'll talk a little bit more about what my office does in just a few moments. But I did want to kind of help set the stage a little bit about what we're talking about when we talk about Boston Public School young people, and we talk about young people in the city of Boston. So Opportunity Youth, as Rachel kind of already talked about, the way I kind of see it is youth typically in the age range of 14 to 24, but honing in on that 17 to 24 age range. Some of our opportunity youth are from marginalized groups, including English language learners, those who are from socio-economically disadvantaged communities, and some are at risk of dropping out. Many of these young people, I think it's important to note that many of them are caregivers and many of them are involved in their communities in some way, shape, or form. So I'm glad that we kind of shifted away from the disconnected youth because I think many of these youth are involved in their communities and connected, but are missing those direct connections to workforce development, job opportunities, understanding the career landscape as it sits not only in Boston but beyond. And so I think there is a gap there. And so some organizations that I like to highlight: Youth Options Unlimited, the Madison Park Development Corporation, Future Boss, which is the City of Boston Jobs Program, which involves workforce development. To David's point, the Boston PIC and the Possible Zone, which is a local organization in the Roxbury area that focuses on kind of green infrastructure and technology for Black and Brown students specifically. And so just some high level information about Boston Public Schools. So BPS educates over 46,000 students across 125 schools. Some of this data is a little old. They need to update it. But as of 2018, our graduation rates, as you can see, were 75%. Many of our high schools now offer, oh, did I freeze? Oh, okay. Many of our high schools actually offer dual enrollment. Wentworth is a school that is an institution that some of our schools work with, as well as Bunker Hill Community College, Roxbury Community College, and some of the other local colleges in the area. So many of our high school students now are getting the opportunity to try out college courses, dual enrollment, if their school does not offer advanced placement or international baccalaureate options. A unique part of the Boston Public Schools is that we do have a place called the Re-Engagement Center, which is, as you can see, a joint initiative between Boston Public Schools and the Boston PIC that really reaches out to those opportunity youth, students who are in danger of dropping out, students have already dropped out, and it's their job to help get them back into school or get them involved in workforce development programs that can support their future. So we are very lucky to have that in Boston Public Schools, and just is a tremendous resource for our young people who are in need of additional support. And then we have about 14,000 high school students. 11,000 of those are considered high needs. And then you can also see the racial breakdown here in the top corner of kind of how our students break down by race. And then there's just a lovely picture of the student council that I'll talk about shortly. So opportunities to support Boston's youth. As many of you know, the minimum wage is still $15 an hour, which does not go far in a city like Boston. And so our students are advocating for the minimum wage to be raised to at least $18 an hour as they continue to try to work for more equality, especially when it comes to income. So some of the restrictions that young people face are, for example, if they work for SuccessLink or Future Boss, which is the city jobs program, you can't work more than 10 hours a week. And so that restricts their ability to make more money. And sometimes this can also affect If their family is on public assistance after they turn the age of 18, some of those things can affect whether or not a student has access to working. Many young people as early as 14 are key contributors to their household. So they are helping their parents with bills. They are helping buy their siblings shoes and clothes. They are helping to buy food for the house. And they are contributing to the everyday ecosystem of their families. Um, and then also, many of our young people are eager to work and support their families, as they know that their parents are also working tremendously hard as well. And then really quickly, so some of the work that the Boston Student Advisory Council does, which is kind of where my work lands. We have 3 flagship programs. We have our academic year leadership program where student advocates from all of the Boston Public High Schools come together, and they work on different advocacy issues that they want to see changed in Boston Public Schools. They learn leadership skills, workforce development, and other advocacy and grassroots organizing skills with a social justice lens. And all of our students are paid through the City of Boston jobs program. We also run a 6-week summer leadership intensive, where we take 30 Boston Public School students, and we work with them really on developing their leadership skills, their post-secondary passions and careers, wellness, and of course, trying to have a little bit of fun and make memories. And then lastly, we support our student government. So we believe that if our students are engaged civically on a school level, they will be engaged civically on a city, state, and federal level. And that's really something that we want to instill in our young people, to be involved in what is going on in their communities. And so we also support our student governments on the ground as well. And again, as I spoke to, we have about 55 young people from various BPS high schools. They're 14 to really 21, actually, because we do have the City of Boston has kind of 2 programs, one for younger people and one for older. We meet twice a week. Um, we do financial workshops, mental health workshops, all different types of workshops. Our students also lead campaigns. We have affinity spaces for our young men of color, as well as our female identifying and LGBTQ plus youth. And we kind of end our year with a showcase of all of the different projects that they've worked on. These are some pictures from our summer program. We did a mural in the Roxbury area, right outside of our building. Oh, and we also went camping here on the other side, which was some students' first experience kind of being out of the city. Again, student government, a big place for civic engagement for our students. And this is what our students are currently working on, a student-centered cell phone policy that can be implemented across the schools. Some of our schools use these things called yonder pouches right here. Some of them don't. And so the students are right now on BSAC are really focused on creating a cell phone policy that that is student-centered, that brings their perspectives, but also addresses some of the issues that are real around cell phone usage in school. And yeah, that's it. So thank you. And I will pass it off to Jermaine to talk more about the academic mentoring side of what Boston Public Schools is doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dennisse. And yes, Jermaine, please, whenever you're ready.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jermaine Tullock, and I'm the Director of Academic Mentoring for the BPS. And it's so great to speak with you all today about our work and what we do. I direct 4 separate programs. The academic mentoring program started as a response to the COVID epidemic. Students were losing a sense of belonging. We had lots of chronic absenteeism. So we decided to launch and pilot a mentor program. The first year we did the pilot. I was actually a mentor. I didn't direct the program. I was a mentor. And I was able to see just the power of mentorship and how it can change the lives of our students. I had a one-on-one mentor in 9th grade where I taught at the O'Brien. So David, we were there at the same time. I taught at the O'Brien. After that year, they opened up the district-wide program and looked for a director. I applied and I was able to direct the role of our one-to-one program. I've now built it out to 4 programs. We still continue our one-to-one mentor program. So students across the districts between grades 6 through 12 can apply for a one-on-one mentor. And that mentor meets with them for at least an hour a week outside of school time. So it can be before school, after school, or on the weekends. And any BPS employee can be a mentor. So the mentor may be in their school and maybe in central office and maybe at another school across the district. That program is growing well. We did grow it out from 59 students the first year, 3 years ago, to now serving about 432 students as of right now, this year. We also made it through budget cuts, which is great, and hoping every year we get, on the table, hoping to make it through this year as well. We've also expanded to the Academic Mentoring Youth Council. One of the things I noticed was there was a rough time getting young men to join our mentorship program, and I would go to schools and I would talk about it. And there was just a lack of understanding of what mentorship was. So I asked for feedback. Some of the young men said, why would I need someone in my business? What's a mentor? What's the problem? I don't need anyone. I don't need anyone to talk to. So what we did was we started a summer job where we paid young men. 2 years ago, we started it, a summer job where we paid young men to learn about the power of mentorship. So their job was to learn about mentorship, create presentations, PowerPoints, speeches about mentorship, which we then went and talked to different community centers about. From that, the academic mentoring program really bloomed. And we actually, from that summer program with the young men, we started The Gathering. The Gathering is a high school age young men's program. We started with about 14 young men. Now we have about 252 young men represented from about 40 different schools across the district. And we have gone on trips. My biggest thing in The Gathering is exposure. So I want them to see new things, go new places, experience new things. Yes, we will go to the restaurant and order duck and let's see what it is. You should see the faces. It's amazing. So The Gathering launched about a year and a half ago through a continuation of the summer program. From The Gathering launch, we've expanded our reach with young men in the mentoring program and in The Gathering. Actually, right now, we are actually in Washington, D.C. So I'm in Washington, D.C. right now with some members of The Gathering. Our last summer was our second year of The Gathering summer program, and we built the capacity for mentorship even more, and we published a book and a teen journal. The students self-published a book and a teen journal. So we're at the National Mentor Conference right now, actually presenting that book and journal in Washington, D.C., which I'm really excited about. So I stepped away to come to this meeting. So The Gathering is going pretty well. We've taken them on HBCU college tours through different funding and private funders and city funding. We've also taken them to NASA Kennedy Space Center to be exposed to aerospace engineering. And I'm excited to announce one of the students from our NASA trip last year is actually was awarded a full ride to Stanford University for aerospace engineering. So, awareness and exposure, it really does make a difference in the lives of our students. And we have another student who got a full ride to Dennison in Ohio for space engineering. And we're excited. We've also gone to Broadway in New York and done mentorship practices in New York. The program has really grown. We also launched this September, our young ladies group mentorship program. And this is open to all high school students in a BPS school in grades 9 through 12. The Gathering is for young men, the convening is for young ladies. And we also have our AM Youth Council, which meets during the year. It's a paid after school position. They help create events to help the culture of our mentors and mentee and invoke more connection. And they also make, calls to our mentees to make sure everything is going well. They are doing a great job in representing the mentorship program. One of the things we're coming up against is this year, a lot of our mentors are graduating. A lot of our mentors in The Gathering, and they've been with us for a few years through high school, they're graduating. as a senior, and we're finding different ways to connect with them. One of the ways we're hoping to connect is to create a partnership. Many of them are staying in Boston, to create a partnership as they go away. They're able to come back and pour into the current mentors who are there as kind of like a college success mentor for our current high school students. So we're hoping to launch that program this summer. So we're looking for different ways to expand, and we're excited about where this program has come from, how it's grown. Right now, we have about 300 mentors across the city of Boston, 4 programs. And throughout our programming, we get to impact about 1,200 students. So we're really excited about how this has grown from a small program to kind of a district-wide 4-part initiative. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jermaine and Dennisse. It was really great to hear about the great work that you guys are doing. And it's so cool to see all the different ways that BPS has their fingers reached out to the population. That's the end of the formal presentations. We have reached the interactive portion of this event. Please, if anyone has questions, feel free to raise your hand or just take yourself off mute. This is the chance to ask our experts here anything you might want to know about Opportunity Youth or any of the programs that they're working on or leading.
Yeah, Rachel, I'd love to chime in here. A question I have, I'm Sean Higgins, I'm the director of the Summer Fund at Philanthropy Massachusetts, which does a lot of work with school-age youth, typically up to the age of 18. But we work with a lot of organizations that are working with populations, that extend into like the 24-year-old range. And a curiosity that I have just from feedback from some of these organizations is like challenges around, we've talked a lot about sort of diversity in the sense of, race, ethnicity, language, and gender. One of the things that I think I hear a lot about from our nonprofit partners is, diversity being where you are in life, and how you see more diversity of where young people in sort of the 17, 18 to 24 range are in their life, and curious how, that dynamic of, one young person maybe, not really sure what they want to do in life, and one young person maybe really, quite confident in what they want to do. One person may be supporting a kid, another person may not be there, right? What does it look like designing programs around that and celebrating that diversity of where young folks are in their lives, recognizing that one, we want to celebrate that. We want to recognize that people will be at different places. And two, it can be pretty hard, right? To think about what a program might look like when people are just at different places and spaces in their lives. So curious about that, and any learnings, difficulties, challenges around that sort of surround that dynamic.
Thank you. That was a great question. One of the things that Dennisse and I both make sure we try to amplify is youth voice. When we're building out our programs and looking at programming and how we can expand programming, many times we ask the students, what are you looking for? What do you think will best benefit you? One of the things we're talking about right now is as the students begin to graduate from their senior year, there's no more connection to BPS. So they're leaving the mentorship program, but they still need mentorship. How do we still connect them to mentorship in different ways, even though they're leaving from the high school program and going into college? Do we just disconnect? Do we just leave? Is there some closure? Is there some reconnection? And students have questions. Students also have wonderful ideas of different things they want to see in the programming. So the first thing I would say is really take a chance to amplify the youth voice and get some feedback from the youth of exactly what are you looking for? What do you feel you need? Our programming was built out through youth voice. So the one-to-one programming started, but we developed the group mentoring because many students didn't want a one-to-one mentor, but they wanted to come to the events. They wanted to take the classes. They wanted to do the professional work development. They wanted to do the career day. They wanted to be a part of a group and feel that belonging, but they didn't necessarily have the commitment because of family issues, school issues, after school programs, different things. They couldn't commit to the one-on-one. So we took that and we created the gathering and the convening, which is now these group experiences that students can kind of drop into, and they love it. They love that they have now student choice to be able to pick all right, I can have a one-on-one mentor this year, or I can have the one-on-one mentor and the group mentoring, or I can just do the group mentoring. And that all comes from really amplifying youth voice.
Yeah, I definitely agree. A great place to start is connecting with the young people that you're hoping to kind of serve and work with. And I think, from your example, Sean, right, no one size fits all. But that doesn't mean that young people don't want options to JT's point, to Jermaine's point. And so I think it also starts with exposure, right? A lot of us didn't know what we wanted to go into. I went into college thinking I was going to get my business degree. I ended up with a sociology degree. So again, like that exposure to knowing like what careers are out there, what options are out there. And so I think a baseline that we start with is like exposure. So you saw some of the pictures, like we had students taking cooking classes. We had students, volunteering at the local nonprofit grocery store here. And even some kids were like, oh, I could do this after school, maybe not as a career, but as an after school job. And so that exposure piece is super important. I know like Madison Park Development Corporation, for example, they have kind of like 4 different programs. The students kind of get some choice in those programs. And then they kind of launch into something next, whether it's an internship or an apprenticeship. So they have that exposure and then they commit to that kind of track. And then they get that in real time experience to be like, okay, actually, I don't want to be a youth worker, or actually, I don't want to do X, Y, or Z job, right? And then kind of come back. But yeah, I think with all the work that we do, there isn't a one size fits all, right? And not every person is gonna want to be involved either, right? You are gonna find the young people that are like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna try this out and I'm gonna give it my best shot.
Thank you.
Yes, Bill, please go ahead.
Thank you for your presentations and for enlightening me on this topic. I want to zero in on some of the pathways that you're describing. And I'd like to hear more about from each of you about how either mentorship or the work that you're doing specifically with the PIC lead to more of what Dennisse was talking about, the apprenticeships, the internships. Pathways to education are really important. We're big supporters of it, with ultimately a goal, hopefully, of entering the workforce. So I'd like to hear more about the skills and knowledge that are applicable to workforce that are embedded in these programs.
David, you wanna take that one?
Sure. So from what I understand it as, the Boston Pick provides opportunity through a lot of different sectors, right? And for me, the way I got through it, or became part of it, was through the Hope Initiative, which is also funded by the Boston Pick, and that mentorship there was, something to say the least, was really impactful. So um, that's how I, became a part of it. That's more so how I started to realize the opportunities that were granted by the Boston Pick. For example, an opportunity was that they allowed me to go to Aspen, in Colorado, to attend a conference with other like-minded individuals across the country. So, starting with the mentorship and then being open to other opportunities is a really great thing.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, Bill. I think, I think there's a lot of things that our young people kind of need to be successful in these different spaces. Um, I think, in BSAC, we focus a lot on just leadership skills, whether that's communication, facilitation, um, community building, community organizing. So we focus a lot on that because those are transferable skills, right, to pretty much any job or space that you're going to take that next step to. So that's a big part of what we do at BSAC. So our students are presenting, they are facilitating, they are working on their public speaking skills and getting feedback from us on that. JT comes in sometimes and does mindfulness activities with the young people. So I think, communication and leadership skills are huge. Um, Again, that experiential learning, those internships, that hands-on getting to know, like, do I want to do this? And then also young people knowing their kind of skill set is important too, right? If you know your skill set, you have a better way of kind of understanding where you want to go in terms of your career. And then clearly mentorship and connections, networking are some huge aspects of that, right? Like the pathway can be there, but if these other supports aren't in place, it's going to be really hard for anybody to kind of reach that end goal on their own, especially with, the additional factors of what some of our young people are facing right now. So I hope that answers your question. Those were the things that came to mind for me.
It does. Thank you.
Well, yeah, I agree with Denise wholeheartedly. One of the things we're trying to focus on, especially over the summers when we have kind of the smaller group of about 20 to 25, is just weekly going to and exploring different careers. So we visited law firms. We visited jobs that I haven't even heard of. I learned as the students were learning. We visited Labor, excuse me, rather, which is a forensic science law firm that goes through phones for different court systems, and it's didn't even know that existed. So we're learning all these different things where we go to bakeries, we learned how to fish, we're giving them just real, to be well-rounded adults and getting the exposure from many different careers. We have even a trade night where last year we had a trade night where we invited barbers, plumbers, electricians, because college isn't for everyone, but we had them talk about the trades. And we do have students that got excited that night and they want to go into the trades. Many of the students attend Madison Park, which is one of our vocational schools. So that trade night really, got them excited about, I want to be a plumber. I want to be an electrician. College is not for me, and it'll be a faster way to get money to take care of my family and help with different things. And maybe I'll go to college later. So just giving them exposure to multiple options and choices, I think is a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you all.
This is Kathy. So a question I have kind of following up on that, I heard Dennisse, you mentioned networking, and we all know that, kind of networking in terms of getting a job, and sometimes it's about who you know or who you've had contact with. And I'm curious, as you go to all the different workplaces, does all that contact then become part of a social network that kids can draw on? Have you seen any of that?
Yeah, Kathy, I think it's still definitely a work in progress, right? A lot of people kind of categorize Boston as like resource rich, but communication, they say poor, but not so great, or resource, not, networking, not so great. So I think a lot of particularly youth serving organizations are trying to break down those silos. So we do have a city office, the Office of Youth Engagement and Advancement. So they have like monthly networking events where youth serving orgs can all come together, learn from each other, make those connections. And so, like, for example, we've been able to make a good connection with the YMCA here in Roxbury through that connection. We were also able to connect with another organization called SparkShare through those organizations. So the networking is there. I think the difficult thing is finding where our programs align and, trying not to, um, steal students from other programs or overwhelm them, right? Because you could be a part of the Boston Pick and BSAC and these other programs, right? But like also trying to spread that out too, right? Like, because we do have a lot of young people that need those entry points, that need that person to be like, hey, come and do this job, or like, hey, you'd be a really great fit for that. So I think we still have some work to be done, but I think for the most part, when Jermaine and I reach out to an organization or to folks, they're really excited to work with our young people. And yeah, so I think the networking is super important. We try to be that conduit for them too, and just make that connection for them. But again, that's more difficult if you're not as connected with programs and things like that. If that answers your question, Kathy.
Yeah, and just actually a quick follow-up. I know your programs are still fairly young in terms of thinking of alumni, but Jermaine had mentioned about maybe working with alumni. Do you have, I mean, it feels like alumni of your own programs could fill some of that social network as well.
Yeah, for sure. So BSAC is actually came out of the desegregation era of Boston Public Schools. So BSAC has existed in lots of different forms for like 40 plus years now. So we have a lot of alum that contribute, that come back, that want to work with the young people. For sure. BPS doesn't have like an alum association, right? It kind of goes school by school. So as you can imagine, like the Boston Latin schools have a kind of robust alumni network, whereas some of our other schools might not have that alumni network. So at some point in time, this office was kind of focused on alumni work, but that's a very huge undertaking. So, but we definitely have young people that come back, work in the summers, come do workshops, you know, come and check back on the kids. But I think, we can definitely be more intentional about like making sure they have that loop to come back with and connect with the young people.
I think one of the things we launched this year as well, when thinking about the alumni, I was reminded one of the things we launched this year with our students is to make a social capital ecosystem map. Like, who do you already know in your life who can help with different things? And we made that map for students. And I'm looking at some of these maps and I'm like, wait, your uncle does this? How come you've never reached out to your uncle and just because students do come in with a foundation of, different things. So, but sometimes it takes really sitting them down and really helping them to understand, what is a social capital ecosystem? What is social capital and how can you use it for your benefit as a young person when you're going on these internships, when you're doing career day, when you're going to these law firms and different things? How do you allow different ones to become part of your social capital ecosystem? So we're also teaching them that. How do you hang on to contacts? How do you keep communication going? And we're seeing great things from that. And we're excited. We have not been around as long as BSAC, definitely. We're fairly new, but we're excited to hopefully, bring the opportunity to bring some alumni back. Some of our seniors graduating this year have been part of the program since 8th grade. So it'll be great to bring them back because they know the program in and out and can help different ones in high school, bring awareness to mentorship as well as mentor them.
And if I could also just put in my 2 cents here. I would say for at least the Hope Initiative at the Bunker Hill Community College, there are, a lot of alum. It's a fairly young program starting in 2017. But I've met previous alum who come back to maybe even do like an adjunct course, but also just involve themselves, whether that be, through what they have at Hope is professional development meetings where they'll invite a bunch of Hope scholars and have them listen to the speaker at that panel. And that's one of the ways I could think of immediately of where connecting with current Hope scholars with former alumni or other professionals in whatever industry and just being able to create immediate connection. For example, I reached out to somebody that was in AI, and because they spoke at a panel here at Hope, and I was able to send an email and start communicating right then and on. So it is definitely possible, and it's something to that I think you'll start seeing more on as the years go on.
Hi, thank you, David, for sharing. I saw a question in the chat, which I thought was really great. What role does financial literacy play in this work? So we do offer financial literacy classes. We did have, about 2 years ago, we did a financial literacy course where we had a funder, it was a 10-week course. Anyone who completed the course and saved like $500 from the course, the funder matched that savings. So that was a great way to get them into the financial literacy course, pay attention, do everything they needed to do, and actually save money. Summertime, that's their time to shine because they're getting kind of a weekly check. But they don't know how to spend it. Sometimes the $500 shoes is very enticing when and then you have no money to eat lunch. So, we're helping them build those financial literacy skills. We do have a partnership with the community engagement manager from Chase Bank. He does come and do financial literacy workshops for us. We also have a realtor come in and do realtor classes so students can get through the steps of getting their realtor license. So there's different ways we help with financial literacy. Sometimes, even though we do this financial literacy classes, some students are like, why am I taking this? I have no money. So why am I learning how to save and build and do all of this when I have nothing? So like I said, one of the things we did was the financial literacy class was a paid thing to learn the financial literacy, and those who were able to show they saved were given matched it from the funder. But we do many workshops and classes on financial literacy and the importance of it. As we double down on it as they become seniors and get ready for college. This is really important now. You have to make sure we're saving so you can have things as you leave home, even if you stay home, but things will look different as you go to college. Thank you. Great question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Rachel. I know,
Go
I just
ahead,
wanted to
please.
jump in there really quickly. Huge part of the work that I think is being done with workforce development, like across the city. So we do have accessibility to Bank on Boston, which is an organization that comes in and teaches our young people about financial literacy, about credit, about credit score, about wealth building, about buying a home. And these are things that we're talking about with our young people, at 14 years old, because many students from other places get access to these things very early on, whether it's from the conversations they're hearing at home or what they're exposed to. So we do a lot around goal setting. So like financial goal setting. So if you want to buy a car, right, like this thing that you want to do, how do you actually use the money that you have to either get there? What are the gaps going to be? What are some things you need to take into consideration, like insurance and gas and parking and all those other things that sometimes, students aren't necessarily thinking about. We're also talking about intergenerational wealth building. Some of our students, their parents own homes, like to Jermaine's point, right? Our students do come with lived experience and things like that. And so if your family has a family home, right, how do you look at that as an asset? How is that something that could potentially help you in the future? And then we also have some great organizations that are focused on young people learning more about real estate, particularly in Boston, as development is crazy here, and wanting to make sure that our Black and Brown students have access to the money that is being made around us. And so there's an organization called Prepped, and he is also a BPS alum. And he pays for real estate licenses for students who complete his program for high school students. So huge focus, I think, over the last few years, especially since COVID, on financial literacy and helping our young people to kind of see their financial future. And we have had folks come in talk about stocks and how to invest um, and the importance of building Black and brown wealth. So those are definitely things that we are working to instill in our young people and show the importance of financial literacy and financial understanding. So huge aspect of the work that you guys are exploring.
Thank you. And yeah, I was only going to add that I think for those of you who participated in the GMA funder community in our last cycle, you might recall that I think it was the very last session, there were some deliberations happening where there was a question raised among the group about should they require financial literacy courses. And one of the nonprofits who ultimately got funded, the Haven Project, they told everyone, you know what, we don't need to require anything because the youth are asking for these financial literacy courses. They want it. So just another thing to keep in mind. Okay, so I am noting it's just after 12. I think we have time for one or two more questions. Folks can let me know if you have any. Judy, please.
If no one else does, these initiatives, the way you've described them, sound rich, robust, and really effective. I'm wondering what your goals are for getting more students into these programs and how you see the next few years play out as far as participation goes.
I'm definitely one thing I've had to lean on is the youth voice, getting students. Many students, the idea of mentorship, it is explained better through a friend. So many students, their entryway into mentorship is hearing about one of our traveling programs or one of our events with the convening or the gathering, the group mentorship program. They come to one of our classes, they come to one of our events, they travel with us to a college tour or something. And once they're there, everyone else can tell them, oh, I have a one-on-one mentor. Oh, I get help with this. This is what we do. And from that, they're like, oh my gosh, I get it now. I want a mentor too. So, and this is to me why that alumni project is so important, because youth will come if youth say it's great, if youth says it's good. When I go present at schools, I get so much more students signed up if I brought other youth with me to talk about their experience than I come in as an adult and telling them you need mentorship, it'll really bless your life. And they're like, why? Why do you want someone in my business? So youth coming, youth coming and speaking on it is such a powerful tool. So continuing to use that youth voice, continuing with the AM Youth Council throughout the school year, which they get paid to be our youth voice, as well as the summer program where they get paid to be our youth voice, to talk about mentorship, build our mentorship program, give ideas about our program, and give ideas about the capacity of our program. And when I say give ideas, I really actually mean we implement youth ideas, not just have them give ideas and we put the book somewhere. But the book and publishing the book, they published a book in a teen journal. That was their idea, and it bloomed into something wonderful where we're now in Washington, D.C. presenting it. But yes, it takes work. And yes, it takes, being an advisor, but really letting them run with their ideas, because youth know how to get youth, and they know what they're doing with youth. So really leaning to them to be the experts in expanding programming and getting the word out there.
Yes, for sure. Youth always come, they always want a friend. Can I bring my friend, miss? Yes, you can bring your friend. Bring whatever friends you want to bring. Um and so yes, I think definitely listening to youth voices is huge. BSAC kind of in the beginning of the school year, myself and I have an assistant director. We're kind of doing more of the facilitation, but now at this point pretty much most of our meetings are youth led. So we do have a president, vice president. We do have some of those systems kind of put in place, and they are creating the agendas for the meetings. They are leading the meetings. They are inviting speakers in, and really taking on that ownership of what it looks like to be in that leadership role. And I think for BSAC and for the Office of Youth Leadership, we're really trying to start working with students earlier. So our students that we have from ninth grade to 12th grade have the best outcomes in terms of getting scholarships, getting into college, having a plan for whatever they're going to do next. And part of that is us, and obviously that's also on their great schools as well. And so I think we would like to start working with middle schoolers earlier on that leadership, on that civic engagement. So my assistant director has really been taking the lead and going into our middle schools, presenting on youth voice and youth leadership. Um, you know, given the current situation in the United States right now, we are really focused on students knowing their rights, and so understanding what rights they have both in school and out of school. So as you can, our work kind of pivots to respond to what is going on and to what young people need. So we are now kind of focusing on a Know Your Rights campaign, so students know and understand what's going on in school, what's going on in their community, and what rights they have as young people. So we definitely have to pivot and move with what is going on in the world. And again, that is navigated by the young people and the information that they are yearning for and want and the opportunities that are out there. So I think for us, definitely working with students earlier to build those leadership skills, to build that civic engagement, and then also kind of responding to whatever students feel they want to share and express and advocate for.
Great. Okay, I have one last question, but again, if anyone else does too, we certainly have the time. But I guess I would just love to hear from our speakers. I think in thinking about what we've talked about today, we've heard a lot about, excuse me, the impactful, way that mentorship can really guide and steer a young person. And we've heard a lot about understanding and utilizing their social network and kind of understanding how to network. I'm curious if you guys feel like there's any other sort of top tier approach that can really be useful in sort of maybe finding the opportunity youth, or even once you find them, keeping them engaged, or again, just helping them along their path towards however they're defining success for themselves. David.
Yeah. So your question was on how do we keep the youth engaged? Is that correct? Wait, yeah. So currently, as a youth voice leader, what we're doing is setting up, the basis. So hopefully the next year of youth voice leaders can take it on. And what I mean by that is, as I mentioned earlier, these focus groups that we're doing on seeing what is the obstacles that are preventing 16 and 24-year-olds, from engaging, whether that be academically or in the trades, and seeing, what the next steps of what, to remediate that would be, right? Whether that is to maybe pivot them to academics or set them up to connect with one of our other programs that we have, like the Mass Hire program. So yeah, I think that's one of the ways that we're currently setting up. It's just a foundational layer, and hopefully next year that we start to build it up to make it even more spectacular.
Jimmy, you want me to go?
Sure.
Okay. So I think, it's hard to keep them engaged all the time, right? I'm not going to say every kid comes to BSAC every day and they're like, yeah, miss, I want to be here. Like, I'm ready to go, right? Part of it is like us bending and flexing, meeting students where they're at, being flexible, but holding them accountable at the same time, right? If you're going to apply for something and, go for something and commit to something, right? You have to see that thing through to the end. And sometimes we do have students that decide BSAC isn't the best fit for them, right? And we can look at ourselves and say, what could we have done better? We can always connect with that young person and say, like, was there something that you needed that you weren't getting? But I think having their ideas and their input helps keep them engaged, right? Nobody wants to do necessarily what is always told to them. And so really bringing in that agency piece of like this is, these were the options that you have. This is what you kind of chose. This is what you were interested in, like kind of see it through, and having that push, right? That firm but fair push, I think is super important to working with young people. And then like representation really matters. So if they're in a field or in a space or considering a field that they don't see anybody who looks like them or they can't connect with folks who look like them, there's going to be a level of disengagement and discouragement, right? Like if I don't see Black doctors and Black lawyers, I don't know if I'm necessarily going to see myself as that. And so I think representation is a huge part of whatever work these organizations are doing, right? Getting Black and brown bankers to come and talk to our students about financial literacy is super important. And so I think also what else might be missing, um, I think we also need to realize that like the times have changed and things are different, right? You don't just go to a cubicle and sit down and like do your dated 9 to 5 job or whatever that case may be, right? There's all types of industries out there that our young people are exposed to. There's nail technicians, there's lash technicians, there's tattoo artistry, right? The whole gamut the of options is out there. And so I think for me, sometimes I need to, change my perspective and be like, okay, professionalism might look different to this generation. And like I have to meet them where they're at. And there are some non-negotiables, right? Like there's just certain things you're not going to do in the workplace. But there's also times where I'm like, okay, maybe I'm being a little bit old school and I need to like chill out a little bit. So I think some of that also has to come into play, right? My own mind shift about what I've been taught about professionalism and workforce development, and just know that the times have changed a lot. And, as we know, college is not for everybody. It is not affordable for everybody. And so it's not my advice for you to go $100,000 in debt versus doing a workforce development program where you can come out with a job making 80K after 1 year. Um, so I think we have to change our perspective too on success, on professionalism, and what options are really out there for our young people, because it is very much not a straight trajectory these days. So I've noticed that I have to come to a mind shift myself, and say like, okay, I got to meet this student where they're at. Maybe they don't think college is the best choice for them. Let's figure out what are some options so they at least have somewhere to land at that point. But I think it's also about us kind of shifting how we think about the workforce and in the world today too.
I think that's great. Um, Keeping connected, many times it's because you're supplying a need. So, when the students come with friend, you're supplying that need for community and that sense of belonging when they come to the events. When they, work the job or the youth council, you're providing, a financial benefit, but they're learning all the time and they're, growing all the time. So, even as I begin to think about the next steps, what needs, can we supply so that when college gets busy, different things get busy, they still come because you're helping with a need that they have. So they're still connected, they're still involved because you're helping to supply a need that they have. So we tend to think about what needs do we need to continue to supply to our youth, and make it equitable for all youth. One of the things I wanted to make sure, even on our trips and the different things we do, we have different schools represented. We don't want to just give the opportunities to one school or two schools, but they're open to all BPS schools. So, and just providing those needs to keep them connected.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much to our speakers, Dennisse and Jermaine and David. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys taking the time. I hope that our funders also found it wonderful. I will be in touch with you guys for sure. We'll stay in touch. But I think you guys are welcome to step off, go get some lunch, go enjoy your day. Again, just thank you for your time. And funders, let's stay on for just a few minutes and we will wrap things up.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank
Thank you,
you all.
everyone.